Have you ever been halfway to work or maybe just walked into the grocery store and had that sudden cold panic? You forgot to put on deodorant. Listen, this one thing you've done thousands of times is that, like, by definition, what a habit is. So how did your brain just forget? Today, we're going to talk about why that happens and why the entire way that we think about building habits is really setting us up for failure. Every moment tests you. Every action defines you. This is the Prestigious Initiative, where mindset becomes muscle and character becomes legacy. I'm Chris Beane, martial artist, coach, and relentless believer in growth. If you're here to sharpen your edge, lead with integrity, and build a life that echoes beyond your years, you're home. You can find the podcast on social media at PrestigiousPod. You can find me at Chris Beane Official, and the email for the podcast is prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com. This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Beane. I'm so glad you're here with me here today. We're going to talk about a word that I think is one of the most understood and maybe even damaging words in the self-improvement world, and that is habit. We're told consistently that the key to a better life is building good habits. We just need to automate our behaviors and our life will be on autopilot. It's a set it and forget it. Listen, but I'm here to tell you that that's a lie, or at least I think it's a deeply incomplete picture of how we should think about this. Because habits, if habits are so foolproof, how have you ever forgotten to put on deodorant? I mean, come on, be honest. You've done it literally thousands of times. It is, like, by definition what a habit is. And yet there have been times you've walked to work, got that sudden cold panic. Your brain, which is supposed to be on autopilot, completely checked out. You forgot to put on deodorant. I know some of you guys are sniffing right now, checking to see if you put it on. Listen, what if we think about this a little bit differently? Okay, maybe even another habit that I'm sure that we've forgotten. You decided to start flossing every single day, and we're told you do it for 21 days. You get a habit of it. You don't even have to think about it anymore. So you floss 21 days, maybe even 66 days, whatever that magic number is supposed to be. You cross the finish line. It's a habit. You don't have to think about it anymore. Then you go on vacation. The routine breaks. You get back home, and you just stop. The habit, it just didn't stick. Right? We've all been there before. Why does this happen? Well, it's because that set it and forget it module leaves the important ingredient out for that lasting change, which is our intention. The purpose, it is our brain. Our brain is checked out of those things. So today we're going to explore a little bit different path. We're going to take a shift from thinking about building habits to elevating practices. This is not just about semantics. It's a fundamental shift that can really transform your relationship with self-improvement from a frustrating chore into a very meaningful craft. So let's start by pulling apart this idea of a habit. The common understanding is a habit that is something that can become automatic and routine if you just repeat that thing enough times. The goal is efficiency. You want to free up your mental processing so you just don't have to think about the thing. Brushing your teeth, habit. Driving to work, habit. Checking your phone the second that you wake up. Unfortunately, a very strong habit. This sounds great in theory, right? Efficiency is good. We want to automate the boring stuff so we can focus our mental energy on the big, important problems. We can solve those things. We can work on the things that we want to work on. But here's the problem. In fact, here's problem number one, the lack of intentionality. When something becomes true autopilot, that habit, your brain checks out. You're not present. You're brushing your teeth, but you're thinking about that first meeting that you're going to have for the day. You're not just flossing, you're flossing to get done. The action becomes hollow. It loses the meaning. And when something loses meaning, it becomes incredibly fragile. It's easy to leave it out altogether, right? We want to have that efficiency. So we make our habits so efficient that we just lose them altogether. Problem number two is unflexibility. Life is not just a straight line. It's a chaotic, messy, beautiful series of curveballs. Yeah, we've all had the sick kid, a work deadline, vacation. Listen, we've lived through a global pandemic. Any of these can really shatter that rigid habit. And when the habit breaks, we see that as a personal failure. I broke my streak. I failed. That habit was supposed to be our tool, becomes the weapon that we use against ourselves. And problem number three is the good enough trap. Once we deem something a habit, we stop trying to improve that habit. We set it as automatic. Hey, we did it. We checked that box. We just maintain. We hit that plateau. But if we want to better ourselves, if we want to grow, if we want to be more than just maintenance mode, listen, maintenance mode is for your car, not for your life. Think about it. Have you had the habit of going to the gym 3 times a week? Right? What does that look like? Listen, here's something that I think everybody can connect with, right? You go to the gym, you do the same exercises on the same machines, doing the same weight, the same reps, you zone out, you're watching TV as you're on the treadmill, and then you leave. You check the box, yeah, I went to the gym. But you're not actually getting better. You're just staying the same. Your brain is disengaged from that activity. And right there, that's the core issue. We've been trying to build a better life with our brains turned off, and it just simply doesn't work. So what is the alternative? I want to repurpose a new word, or rather an old word that's going to bring in some new meaning, some new weight to that. And that word is practice. We don't say that a doctor has a habit of medicine. They have a practice. A lawyer doesn't have a habit of law. They have a practice of law. Somebody that does yoga doesn't have a yoga habit. They have a yoga practice. Somebody that is a martial artist doesn't have a martial arts habit. They are a martial arts practitioner, right? Those are very different. And what does this word imply? Well, it implies intention. It implies purpose. It implies that you have an opportunity to actively engage in the process of getting better. There's no finish line. The practice of doing the thing is the thing, right? A musician who practices their skills, not because they've never played them before, but because they want to refine their skill, to maintain the dexterity, to connect better with their instrument. They're present for it. They're listening. They're adjusting. The brain is fully involved in that practice. That is the mindset shift from passive automation to active craftsman. You are the craftsman developing your own life. Let's break down a couple of differences between habit and practice, okay? A habit is all about efficiency. A practice is about mastery. A habit is about mindlessness. And a practice is about being mindful. A habit is about completion. A practice is about engagement with the activity. When you break a habit, you feel guilt. You missed that thing. You lost the streak. But when you miss a practice, you feel a desire to return back to that because the intention is to get better in that area. It's a much different mindset here. With a practice, the value isn't just, with a practice, the value isn't just a physical action. It's the mental state that you bring to it. It's the intention behind the action that transforms it to something different. Okay, now this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do this? What are some changes that you can do? How can you take the things that you want from your life and turn them from fragile habits into resilient practices? I want to give you a 4-step framework for this. Step number 1 is find your why. This will be your purpose engine, your motivation to continue on the path. For any habit that you want to build, you must first find a deep reason. Why does this resonate with you? Ask yourself the purpose behind this action. Right? What is it that you want to actually come out of this? Let's take exercise, for example. And these are going to be some mindset shifts that seem subtle, but they're going to have a lasting impact, okay? Don't say I want a habit of running. Dig deeper. Why do you want this? I want a practice of caring for my body, my heart, my longevity. I want to practice building mental resilience and clarity in my head. I want to practice respecting my body and its capabilities, right? The small little shifts, right? You see the difference there. The first is a task. The others are identities. They have a deep set why, and they connect with every single part of who you want to be. When you frame it as a practice of mental resilience, then even a slow, frustrating run on a bad day has value because you have the practice of showing up despite how difficult it was. That is the core of what resilience is, and you're going to be building it through that practice of running. Step number 2 is you want to bookend these practices with intention. Here's a 5-second rule that you can add to any habit or practice that you're developing. This is a very simple tactic, but before you begin a practice, take just 5 seconds and state your intention. Don't just walk into the gym. Stop at the door, take a breath, and say to yourself, I am beginning the practice of building my strength. I will be present with each and every moment here. Don't just open your journal, hold your pen and say, I'm beginning the practice of reflection to help to better understand my mind and who I am. This very tiny moment adds just a circuit breaker for the autopilot. You shift away from autopilot and you become present. It flips the switch in your brain from that unconscious routine to a very conscious practice. And it brings you into that room as the conscious person controlling your life, as opposed to being on autopilot. Step number 3 is you want to prioritize quality over consistency. This is the good enough rule. Listen, and this one might be controversial, but I want you to stick with me, okay? We've been taught that consistency is king, and it is important, but blind consistency leads to autopilot. You just do the task just to say that you did it. With practice, the goal is the quality of your engagement. Did you only have 2 minutes to meditate? But if you were fully focused for those 2 minutes, that's better than having 20 minutes when your mind is racing, you're thinking about your grocery list or whatever else that you have to do for the day. That 2 minutes can be more impactful because you're really focused and engaged in that practice. Did you only have enough time to write 1 paragraph? But you deeply thought about each and every word. That's far better than a practice of writing 5 pages of garbage just to say that I wrote 5 pages today, right? That 1 paragraph is going to be so much more impactful than that's 5 pages that you turned out just because you needed to check the box. Listen, I want you to celebrate the quality. When you prioritize quality, you train your brain to be actively engaged, not just getting through it, not just being able to check the box. And ironically, high engagement naturally builds more sustainable consistency because it is so much more rewarding. You get more out of that practice because you're engaged in it. It's more rewarding because it's quality, not just, again, getting to the end and checking the box. Step number 4, reflect and refine. This is the 1% better loop. A practice is never stilted. It's never static. It's always alive. It evolves. So at the end of your practice, take 30 seconds for a mental review. Ask yourself a few mental questions. What went well? What felt good? What was a struggle? How could I make this even better or even more enjoyable tomorrow? Right? And those simple things at the very end of your practice really changes how that goes. It's not about judgment. It's about data collection. You get to become the scientist in your own life. Your writing, maybe an answer to this, we talked about writing here just a few seconds ago. My writing practice felt blocked today. Maybe tomorrow I'll try writing by hand instead of on the computer. Again, even that brings more intentionality behind what you're doing. You're typing things on the computer, your mind is doing something else because your fingers are just moving. But when you stop and you slow down a little bit to focus on what you're doing, that brings even more into that practice. My strength practice felt great on squats, but my grip failed on the deadlift. So this week I'm going to focus in and make my grip even bigger, right? Gives you an opportunity to say, okay, hey, listen, I didn't do so great in this area. What can I do to fix it? Well, I'm going to work on this because that was where I didn't do so great at. Okay, then you work on those things, right? This feedback loop is what turns this repetition into a path to mastery. You're always looking for that 1% improvement. Now, listen, let's make this really concrete with a few examples. You want to move from an exercise habit to a movement practice. Here's the old way of thinking. Okay, go into the gym, do your preset routines on the machines, you scroll your phone in between sets, you hit play on that auto set playlist that you listen to every time at the gym, and then you leave. Here's the new practice way. Your intention is to build strong, capable body. Somebody that is focused on form of each rep, focus on the muscle. Listen to your body. As if something hurts, you adjust. You want to have that mind and muscle connection. You celebrate the small wins, even if it's just 2.5 pounds that you add to the bar. You held your plank for 5 seconds longer, right? Then the gym is no longer a box that you check. It's a lab for your physical exploration. Here's the old habit for reading. Reading habit into a learning practice. Read 20 pages a day to hit your goal. Check the box. Your eyes are moving across the words, but you're not necessarily retaining anything, right? You shift to a learning practice. I'm studying this. Think of a question. When I'm reading, I think of a question I want to answer as I read this text. It's a conversation that I'm having. I'm sitting across from the author. I'm asking them this question. I read through their answer. And then as I go, I'm writing, I'm taking notes in that book. I'm having that conversation. I'm actively engaged with the practice of learning and studying that text. Making that shift isn't easy. But, and listen, we're so conditioned to look for the hack, the shortcut, the autopilot. The practice, that mindset asks more of us. It asks for us to be present. It asks for our attention. And the reward is so much greater. Instead of building a fragile, brittle habit that shatter under pressure, something, kids homesick from school, there's a snow day, you're on vacation. Listen, all of that will shatter. What I want you to do is build this into your identity. You are not the person who has the habit of reading. You are a learner, somebody who studies books. You are not the person who has the habit of exercise. You are the person who values and cares about your body. And listen, when you miss a day, it's not a failure. It's just a missed session. There's no streak to break, only a practice to return to. And that removes so much of the guilt that often holds us back to becoming that person that we're meant to be. Self-improvement then stops becoming about crossing the finish line or checking that box. It becomes a lifelong, engaging, and deeply purpose practice of becoming that person. A practice of showing up intentionally day after day and engaging with the craft of creating yourself into a slightly better version of yourself each and every day, getting that 1% better. So your call to action this week is to pick just one thing. Maybe it's your morning coffee, your walk, your workout routine, reading before bed, whatever that is, and experiment with how you can turn that habit into a practice. Find a deeper why. Bookend it with that moment of intention. Prioritize just 5 minutes of high quality engagement over 30 minutes of checked out autopilot. And then reflect for just a few seconds afterwards on how it felt. How did it go for you? See how this small shift changes that experiment or that experience for you. I think you'll be amazed with the results. Listen, hey, I'd love to hear how it goes for you. You can find me on social media at Chris Beane Official. Send me a message with the word practice and tell me about your experiment. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, keep practicing.